Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Visit deechworks.com for all your fuel systems needs. I'm your host, ish type person this time, Con John Turk. This is an episode based on a Q&A Instagram post I put together. We're sort of going to talk 8th and 9th gens and how to make them competitive-ish. I know we went in specifically to restricted prep, but this is going to be a more generic, and really it can apply to every car. The road I'm going down is we can apply this to every car. But anyway, joining me, the original question asker on Instagram, everyone's favorite photographer who didn't get in as a Hyperfest 2024 official credentialed photographer, a flashy 9th gen Civic driver, someone who's resisted a lot of peer pressure, but might be breaking because of this question. Think there's cracks in the armor. Brian Myers, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Shoot. I think you and I officially met in person a couple years ago now. You were at Hyperfest and like Boston was there and you guys were hanging out and stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I had a crew pass, I think. Mm-hmm. And because I really didn't want to stay out there in the grass with all the bugs and stuff, so I decided to pitch my tent in your paddock area. But I think I actually kind of met you because I did Hyperfest in 22 as a driver.
Okay.
And I was making laps around the paddock because I cut through my ABS line. And so I went on the 8th and 9th gen Facebook group. I was like, hey man, does anybody have a spare ABS sensor? Because the tire went right through it. And I think after the event and after I'd gone home, we're like, hey man, I was in the Honda Challenge paddock. You should have came by and grabbed one. I think I had one. I was like, I didn't even know who you were.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's people who come through my paddock area that they're like, hey man, been following your car for years and blah, blah, blah. Well, the previous one, it was named, right? So they'd be like, oh, this is the Civic of Doom. And I'm like, uh-huh. Who are you again? And it's even worse now with the podcast. So like I spent a lot of Hyperfest this year, like trying to figure out who was who, getting names, getting screen names. I remember screen names better than anything else. So
right. And it was funny because I talked to Brian late last night and he was like, hey man, I saw you talking to Con, you never came and talked to me. I was like, man, you were busy. Like you were either grabbing beer from this place and you were doing your alignment stuff. You look super busy. So I didn't bother you, you know?
Yeah. Brian Mang. I've known him. Oh, I'm 22 years or longer. He graduated in 23. I graduated in 22, not 23, 2003. I graduated in 2002 from James Madison. So we probably go back to like 99, 2000. So we've known each other a long time.
God, I'm young.
Yeah, you probably weren't even born yet. So
I was born in 90.
Okay, all right. You're not as young as some people that come through and are like, I'm young.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
I'm 33, but I got the back of a 50-year-old. So you know.
Oh well. Yeah, it doesn't get better. I have a bad back too. So. Anyway, let's get your motorsports background and how you got into motorsports photography. That's a question I really want to learn from you.
Okay. So I think I didn't start photography like right away. I did graphic design in probably 2008 to 2009. It was like a grassroots drifting organization down here in the Charlotte area. and I would do a lot of their flyers and stuff. And I really wanted to make my content my own. So instead of like picture grabbing from Google or whatever the search engine was at that point, I'd go out and take my own photos at the event and then use them for the flyers. And then I was like, man, people say I'm doing a good job. I think I could do really good at this. So I kind of put the graphic design aspect away and just focused on photography from that point until now. And I started really getting into motorsport stuff like grassroots circuit racing and DE stuff. And through Boston and Jake, because they started when they had their Subarus and stuff. I think it was like 2015. They were doing iTrack events and some SCCA stuff. And at the time, I had a Subaru Legacy that it wasn't stancy, but it wasn't functional. It was kind of in the middle. Okay. And I was like, man, I don't want to be behind the lens watching these guys have a ton of fun. Like, I actually want to get out there and learn how to do this, learn a new skill and apply it to other things. And so in I guess it might have been like late 2015, I did like a pace lap type of thing. And I can't remember off the top of my head which organization it was with. But I just did pace laps in the Legacy, and I was like, man, this is a lot of fun. This could be way more fun at like a higher speed level, you know?
For sure.
And so I ended up selling that car and buying a like the GC sedan body style Subaru. Slow as balls, but the thought process was to STI swap it like you do, and that never happened. So I ended up going to Grid Life, the first ever Grid Life at Road Atlanta, which was 2016 up until 2019. I still never did racing there, but I did a bunch of media coverage for Grid Life, and that kind of got me into it more and more and more. So by, I don't know, 2021 is when I got into NASA. NASA Southeast, and I did my first DE event. And it's crazy, you know, I can remember my instructors that I had, you know, what parts of the country they were from, and everything that they told me that I did wrong or that I did right. My first instructor was Ken Kirkpatrick from the Thunder series. He drives a what are those motorcycle cars? The Thunder Roadsters.
Okay.
He has one of those. And I just remember he's like, man, I've never been in a Civic before. You're doing great, but here's what you're doing wrong. And he would say, you know, I need you to, you know, put your foot down when I tell you to. And I was lifting when I wasn't supposed to. And he would shove my knee back down onto the pedal. And, you know,
real hands-on instructor.
Yeah. And then he's like, hey, you know, I see what you're doing. Let me get in here, figure out the car, see if I can go faster. And he did go faster, but, you know, he taught me a lot in DE1 at CMP. So I ended up doing 2 DE1 events at CMP, one in May and then one later in November. And my instructor in November was Andrew Meek.
Okay.
And I was so lucky to have him because he has an Integra, and I'm sure he has some other Hondas. He's got a ton of Hondas. So it was nice to have someone that was Honda-centric to teach me how to do certain things regarding front-wheel drive. So I think that really helped me in the long run understand my car and going forward.
So I know you were going to ask me this question, so I'm going to lead off. How did you go from a Legacy to the 9th gen Civic that you drive?
Oh boy. Okay. So I've had a lot of cars.
Okay. Most of us have.
Yeah. 2017, I sold the Legacy and bought the GC sedan, which is a 98 to 2001 Impreza body style. It's like the best one, like the what is it called? The 22B style. And then I wouldn't say I lost interest, but I was very impatient and ended up selling that car for a 2011 WRX hatchback.
Okay.
That car had issues. It had ECU problems. So it was like random misfires, changed everything to think it would fix it, and it didn't. So ended up selling that car, and I bought a second gen TSX with the 6-speed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And on that, I kind of started playing around with like the meaty fitments and stuff. And I was like, man, this is super awesome. Like, I love that you're able to like throw this big ass tire on there and it handles the way you want it to handle. But at the time, those cars are so heavy and not a whole lot of people are doing motorsports in that generation TSX that, I wanted something a little bit different. So, I ended up selling that. I went back through 2 more Subarus. I had a bug-eyed wagon, and then I ended up getting a Forester that I did off-road and overland stuff for the next 4 years. After that 4 years, I was like, hey, man, I need to get a Civic. Because at the time, I bought a daily. I bought a Honda Accord as a daily and ended up getting into a really bad accident. And the game plan was to get into an 8th gen or a 9th gen at the time, whichever one I could find that was worth a decent amount of money. And I mean, it just happened, speak it into existence and it just happens. So the money that I got for the Accord part out, or the Accord accident, I went and found a 2012 9th gen through my job. So I got a really good deal on it, and I got it right before COVID prices got really high. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's the car. I was like, I'm gonna learn how to drive on track with this car. I can't think of a more reliable chassis to do that in. I have some experience with front wheel drive cars, mostly Hondas, and then I have experience in all wheel drive stuff, but those all-wheel drive cars, they're just not reliable. On track, off track, it doesn't matter.
I know lots of mechanics that would agree with you, and then I know lots of Subaru owners that would be like, no, not my car. So
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, why don't you take it away? It's your question and answer. I'm by no means the expert, and I don't think my car is finished. I don't think anybody's car is finished. But if I were to put a percentile on it, I think I'm maybe 10% away as a driver and maybe 5% away with the car. So
I mean, that's pretty good numbers.
Yeah, but I want to be more towards that 5% as a driver and maybe more towards like a 98% with the car. And that last 2% being, let me adapt to the vehicle, to the track, the conditions, those types of things, right? But that takes time, and we can get into that too. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So why did you choose Honda Challenge over other types of spec racing, and why did you go with the 8th gen?
Okay. So I want to clear a misnomer about spec racing. Honda Challenge isn't spec. I believe it fits. While they try to make it a spec, it's really truly the definition of a balance of power class. We have at least an H2, actually even H4. H4 has different options. So when you have different options, you just try to equalize the playing field. So it's a balance of power class. I would not go spec racing, mostly because they look boring. Spec Miatas look boring. Spec 3s, even with the M3 front bumper, I like wings and splitters. It's just the inner racer in me, right? All the spec classes, good for them, but they just They just don't do it for me. That, and 20 plus years ago, the Honda Challenge family was amazing. Like, the paddock area was amazing. They were always helpful. Even to me, I was just a worker with a, clapped out CRX. And if I had a problem, they would help me with it. Right. Even trackside. So I was just working for NASA, and it was a great group. And I had a Honda already. And I was like, well, I'm taking it to the track and I might as well race with these guys. So that's sort of why I ended up in the Honda Challenge family. It took me a long time to get there, 17-ish years to get my race license. Just because I didn't want to race on a credit card. I didn't, because there's no longevity in that. Right. So I wanted to be able to race and continue to race and still be fiscally responsible. I'm a huge nerd over fiscal responsibility, but that's a different rabbit hole. The reason I got the 8th gen, let's see. Originally, so Brian Meng, we mentioned him earlier. He's got a 9th gen, also Honda Challenge H2 car. He picked that car up when I still had my 2000 EM1 with a B18 C5. Okay. And he picked it up for a sweet deal. I don't want to say how much he picked it up for. I think that's not my business, but he got a sweet deal. He told me
at one point, but I'm sure I forgot.
So, but I contacted the same garage, it was a pro race team with a bunch of retired cars, right? And they were trying to clear up some space in the garage. So I hit them up and I was like, hey, you got another one? Because I'll drive another one. And really, it was between the 8th or 9th gen for 2 reasons. One, you could still get parts, and you still can get parts today from Honda. Okay. I'm an idiot, and I didn't completely repair my rear bumper before Hyperfest, and I paid the price, and I can buy a new bumper from Honda right now. So, I don't have to search the junkyards if I don't want to. I don't have to search Facebook Marketplace desperately seeking hoods and things like that. None of that. I don't have to do that. That's number one. Number two, the price. So it was pre-COVID, even post-COVID, they're sort of shifting back down, at least in the 8th gen world, because they're too old in quotation marks. So, and they have a lot of, they're mostly in the 200,000 mile range these days. But they're affordable, 10 grand gets you a base car. And for Honda Challenge, even for GLTC, in my opinion, you're most of the way there, or because the builds are so basic, right? Brakes. Right. It's the big, so I'll give you the breakdown. So my car had a frame rail failure. I was pouring money into axles just to keep racing. I was doing axles every time they broke. And finally I had enough, and I had no more axles left. I had no more axle favors to pull. And we knew there was a problem. My buddy Marcus was like, yeah, something has to be bent in here. Darren at GT Piece was like, bring it to me. We'll do some measuring and see what's going on. Sure enough, it was bent. So on the way home from VIR, ironically, it's like a 4.5 hour tow. We stopped for dinner, that kind of thing. So my wife and I were talking, and she goes, well, if you were going to build something, what would you build? And I said, well, I really want a 10th gen Civic, because at the time it was the newish hotness. And I said, but I don't think we can afford that. One, because the support wasn't necessarily there. And if it was, it's from HPD. So it didn't have a lot of aftermarket support. And what was there was expensive. And also the cars were expensive. And so that's, if you're evaluating getting into racing or getting a new race car, this is a sort of mentality I think you should have. At least this is what I had. This is what I went through to figure out where I was going to end up. So then I had my wife get on like Car Gurus and Auto Trader, and then grab my phone and go on Facebook Marketplace, because she doesn't have Facebook. And I was like, look for, 2008 Civic Si. Just put it in the search bars and go, right? So they all seemed affordable enough. And then I posted on roadraceautocross.com that I was looking for 8th or ninth gen, and somebody hit me up. And, long story short, the reason that I chose it in general was price and parts availability. The reason I chose the car that I have is because it had a clean Carfax. And it came with a decent enough suspension, which we can get into. Because I think there's things we need to do when you evaluate your vehicle, prioritize things. Had a decent enough suspension. It had an OS Geiken, and it hadn't been swapped yet. Because in Honda Challenge, you have to stay with the K20 Z3. So no K24 swap cars were eligible for me because I didn't really feel like pulling it out, sourcing an engine.
Is that only for H2?
That is only for H2.
Challenge in general?
No, only for H2. So in H2, the car is listed as restricted prep. So in restricted prep, you can't swap anything. We have a whole episode. Ash and I did an episode on restricted prep. It's a really simple build for our cars. It's intake, header, exhaust, build your transmissions, brakes, and suspension. So really in a nutshell, it's like Pirelli World Challenge, where, that's really all you can do. And I mean, they make it work. So well, if it can work for them, it can work for us. That's where the rules initially, they wanted crossover and people to be able to buy old Pirelli cars and use them, as Brian Mang did. He bought a Pirelli car. Now, one thing they didn't talk about in Pirelli and 9th gens is that they head swapped those cars.
Right. So
the rules were written, and I don't think they understood that the cars were head swapped already. So, but that's a different ball game. That's when you evaluate it by chassis, and by engine combination. But, in GLTC, maybe the K20 isn't enough. Most of the guys are running a K24, but there's a sucker like me who'll buy your K20 Z3. So there's always somebody out there, and they love those things. And for the 9th gen guys, if you get a 9th gen and you're going to swap it to do something else, God forbid you go do the GLTC and not Honda Challenge. I pray for your budget. It's not that GLTC is bad or anything. It's just the traveling and the budget and all that. It's got to be a little crazier.
I also don't think there's a contingency for GLTC that I know of.
I don't know if there is either, which is kind of crazy, but they do have open tire. So that's a little different. We get like Toyo, the sanctioning body gets Ray Bestis and Hawk and things like that. So whatever you're running that way,
right.
You get that.
I think, I talked to Boston at one point because he was like, man, I kind of want to go to Grid Life, but my car isn't built for GLTC. I feel like I would just get, demolished. I'm like, I don't think so, man. I think you would do really well. You just, I don't know. I don't know why his car is so different and how it couldn't be competitive there. I don't know, but I feel like he would do really good there.
Well, he was probably talking about during the ASM S2000 domination days, and his car and what they were running were very, very different. So
maybe,
yeah. So that's sort of, how things went. Another reason that I picked the 8th gen is when I was looking for what's the next platform, I wanted to know what the weaknesses were. And so I surfed the internet for weaknesses. People said 8th gen brakes were terrible. They had transmission issues. And then everybody complains about McPherson strut cars. I can fix a transmission or have it fixed. We can build it so it stops braking. I can drive it better so it stops braking. And then there's brake kits. Well, I thought there were brake kits everywhere. There aren't that many brake kits.
No.
But the one I'm currently using, the production version of my AP kit, which is now based on a EBC caliper, first weekend
Right.
out, 0 complaints. So good for Austin and the crew at Wonderladen because, yeah, seems like a great kit for the price. So if you're in one of those cars, just in any car, doesn't matter. 10th gen, 9th gen, 8th gen, TSX. I mean, like you said, you loved putting the big meats on your TSX, but you were like, there's no part support for this right now.
Like at all.
At all. Kevin Helms is going through teething issues with that CTR, right? You got to get him cool. You got to keep he's trying to keep things as OEM as he can because they're trying to equalize, they're doing that balance of power in H1 still in Honda Challenge. And so, he wants to keep it mild, right? So, no aftermarket turbo right now, no aftermarket wastegate and stuff. So he's still using the Honda stuff. It works okay. It seems to work okay for the track day guys, but now he's putting it through a different pace on our comps, trying to run down Bradfield in that J series TSX. Like it's a different ball game, and he's had some teething issues and I'm still working to get him on. I want to get him on when he sort of has answers and not continually having questions. And so
to my knowledge, he's actually not far from me.
No, he isn't. And he's wizard
in Charlotte somewhere. It's Honda Works, right?
Yeah. So his race team is Honda Works. His business, he has multiple businesses, but his automotive business is Asia Works. So if you look up,
because
Charlotte.
It used to be Honda Works, and then something happened because he has 2 shops down here. One near my mom's place, and another one like kind of towards downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that. I was like, when the heck did they change to Asia Works? But it's the same thing.
Politics, things happen. So, the other thing you need to look at if you're evaluating a car or any car, is when you're doing your research, you have to surf the internet and try to figure out suspension setups, right? Now I can tell you my setup is not what everyone on the internet has.
Right.
My setup, Sam driving the red 8th gen, his setup is different than mine. Ash's setup is different than Sam and mine. The closest I have now, closest we used to have, Brian Meng and I used to have a similar setup. I was on BC, Redshift BCs. He's on regular BCs, and they were sprung the same way and setups were the same way. But that's because we researched the internet. What's going to happen is you're going to drive it and not like it. So just because I have a suspension setup, I could tell you about it all day long, but you may not like it. The car may feel different to you. But when you make changes, make one at a time and in my opinion, make big swings. There's no reason to go, I'm at 0 toe in the rear. Let me do an 1/8 toe out. First, dialing a 1/16 of toe out on each side is ridiculous. And it's not easy to do, especially trackside, but you're probably not going to feel it. So when you're doing these kinds of evaluations and you're making changes, take a big swing. You may be wrong. On the alignment side, it's easier to fix. On my side, making spring changes like I've been doing, I got to go, now I got to sell these springs because I don't want to have, $1,000 worth of springs sitting in my garage that I'm not going to use,
Mm-hmm.
And a weakness of our cars is that the fronts are one size and the rears are a different size because they're divorced,
Right.
So you don't get to swap them around. You have to buy 2 different sets. If you wanted, 20K springs on the front and 20K springs on the rear, guess what? That's 2 sets. And you can't interchange them to test if you wanted to go to 18 somewhere,
Right.
So it becomes a commitment, a larger commitment. So you have to figure that stuff out. Another thing I did was I started looking at YouTube, any of the YouTube cars that were similar to mine, to evaluate what the top speeds would be. And that turns into essentially what your gearing and final drive should be. So when you're looking at your car, you know, Brian's, there's a lot that goes into gearing. I probably should do a podcast about it. But when your car only revs a certain amount, you want, in general, my opinion is you want, and it's just my opinion, there's plenty of people going to tell me I'm wrong. You want the most aggressive gear stack you can get your hands on per the rules. And then you tailor your final drive to determine your terminal velocity, your top speed. So, in that final drive, it basically is dictated by your RPM. So what do you spin your engine to?
Now with the tune, it's 7850.
Okay. I get to spin 1,000 more, and that's on my conservative shifts. So right. I can run all the way up to 9,000 if I need to. I try to shift at 8,800, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. I do short shift once at VIR and once at Summit Point. So tip for anybody looking for a car, especially in a balance of power class, you want to, whatever the rules say, you need to evaluate what that engine can do. I recommend having to detune everything. So I put my car on the dyno and did anywhere between 226 and 229, and I'm not allowed to break 200. So we detuned the crap out of it, made a decently fat power band in the car. It seems to be pretty nice, you know. So
yeah, it must be nice. I don't even come close to that.
Well, okay, so do you know how much power you put down? Because Meng has this problem too.
So I haven't had it dynoed yet, but if I had to guess, it probably makes now, with the catless downpipe, the intake, and the revision on the tune, maybe 206 to the wheels.
Maybe. I'll tell you, Brian's car had good leak down, good compression, has all that stuff. He's got the new Acuity, like rainbow looking intake in the car, all that stuff. And he says he's about 10 horsepower away. If he gets all 10 of that horsepower, he's going to run down my K20Z3.
But he also has an RBC manifold, correct?
He does not yet. He's got the standard manifold that yeah.
Okay, because that would help. I don't know if you can port the manifolds if that's in the rule book, but if you can do that, that would give you a nice bump. I haven't done it yet because I'm broke, but that's the way to go on these K24s.
I told him to put the rules request in. He hasn't written it yet because he can't have the RBC yet. But when he does, he'll easily make the power, and he'll be like everybody else, somehow running me down on the back straight. So I got to figure that out. But
like I said, that paired with, I think, like I don't know what size throttle body you guys can run.
Stock.
Okay. So the RBC with I think it's the RDX throttle body spacer. Mm-hmm. That's like 20 to 25 horsepower right there.
Yeah, he ain't allowed to have all that.
Yeah.
So he hasn't put the rules request in. So, yeah. But another thing that was important to me was budgeting, right? So the car was cheap enough. We knew we had to build the transmission and address the brakes, mm-hmm. but I could make a budget, and I use retail prices, and I'd add shipping. If you ignore shipping and you don't have like a $500 slush fund for nuts and bolts and random Amazon stuff, yeah, that $500 is coming, you know. I say this all the time. I don't know how race cars were built before Amazon. They definitely didn't make it to the first race on time if they didn't have Amazon. So, but you know, you have to read the rules. And like I said, we went over the basic build for Honda Challenge in episode 28, but it's essentially how you evaluate it. You read the rules, you make a list of what you're specifically allowed to do for whatever class you're looking for. It could be an 8th gen in GLTC. It could be an 8th gen in STL for SCCA. What are you allowed to do, right? Make a list. This is key. Go through the rules and make a list of the gray areas. Now, I'm not saying that you need to exploit the gray areas, but you need to start talking to people, okay? You need to talk to people in your class about the gray areas. Some of them have already been discovered and deemed legal, and it's not actually a gray area, and they don't even have to spell it out. And some of them are like, yeah, I wouldn't do that, you know. So
yeah, I mean, all the guys in like Club TR for Grid Life and stuff, they have exploited the rule book because of those gray areas.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys are building cars up to the very tippy top of that rule book, and it works. Now, granted, a lot of those guys have golden age Hondas with K swaps, and I can't compete, but you know, it is what it is.
I don't think that's true, but you can swap your engine to. 2, you can put bigger tire on your car than they can probably within the rules.
I think a lot of people are actually running close to 255s on most of the Integras and the like the EGs and stuff like that. They're all running close to 255s. 255 is the biggest you can run front wheel drive.
Oh, in Club TR?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing this at a detriment to something. So 17s get you big meat. They get you the ability to put big brakes under it. But there's other things that are missing. What are they all ABS cars?
I don't know.
I know I'm in a balance of power class, so it's going to be different. You can't just go, hey, 9th gen versus Golden Era and Club TR. So you have to evaluate some things. But I think they're doing a pretty decent job balancing the power between the Golden Eras and the restricted prep cars, which are essentially the McPherson Struck cars in our rule book. In other classes, maybe not, but you just have to evaluate it. That's part of the evaluation process when you look at the rules, right? And when you evaluate the car, right? So your strengths in your class, like in Club TR, when you evaluate the rules, whatever those strengths are, that needs to be prioritized in your budget. Okay. So maybe you get special suspension allowance. Maybe you get special brake allowance. Maybe you get, I don't know, whatever they're giving you that your chassis and power plant combination in whatever class you're in, whatever the strength is, you need to prioritize what you're putting there, you know?
Right.
So
and I'd say the strength, I'd say a lot of the strength is not necessarily my motor. My motor is probably the least desired K24 that's been made.
Unless
I think
you need to find somebody who wants to swap it into a Fit.
Yeah, I got a ton of Fit friends. I think the swap to do for our cars is the A2 from the TSX.
That's the go-to for everybody.
Yeah,
Golden Era and otherwise. Yeah,
yeah. Because it has true VTEC, because it has an actual header and all this other crazy stuff. Like, you know, my header's built into the head, so it's not great for NA power, but it's great for boost. But you can run boost in Club TR unless it's a 1.8 or lower, and that's 10th gen territory.
Yes, they're in a 1.5 in the SI. So yeah.
So the only thing that we can really do is we can do bolt-ons. That's cool. You could port the manifold. You can't open up the motor at all. You can open up the transmission and the differential. You can do all that stuff. It's like a builder's class. I would call it a builder's class.
Do they consider your oil pump opening up the motor?
I don't think so. A lot of people are running like the Unit 2 pans with the Type S oil pumps.
Yeah, then
I don't think they consider that opening it up because a lot of people run that anyway. I think Houghton's running that on his 8th gen car, his CSX.
He better be running on all of them. The Unit 2 is on all those cars. Yeah,
I mean, he's running on the TSX GLTC car as well, but I'm pretty sure he runs that on everything that he builds. So, I mean, I guess it's under the rule book.
They didn't put that out until like a year and a half after my car was built or finished. So maybe the next engine will get one of those, but this one is.
I've talked to him in the past. I was like, hey, man, I think it might have been last year at CMP. I was like, hey, man, I've heard these cars have oil starvation issues. And I only say that because, if I take a turn too sharply, that oil light will come on.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be at the racetrack. It could be on my way to work. I mean, they have that issue. But he's like, it doesn't make sense to do the Type S pump if the car is not going to see 9,000 RPMs all the time. If you want to do it to, as a saving grace type of thing or a what if type of thing, great, but you don't need it.
Yeah, so part of me agrees because he's not wrong, but at the same time, I don't want more moving parts in my oil pump so you can take the balance shafts away from me.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So that is a what if concern that he's talking about, but I think it's completely valid, mostly because I hold it. So, but that's why I got rid of my balance shaft. I put in the rules request because I was like, there's no way. The only way to keep this car competitive is to spin the engine. And if I'm not able to spin the engine, or if I do spin the engine, do you really want a balance shaft oil pump in front of you or around you to take out? Right. So it's a reliability thing to me. So, yeah, but so I prioritized. I had a good enough suspension, so I prioritized brakes because the car does. After you put big brakes on it, the actual ABS system is a very good system in these cars. So I wanted to accentuate that with a good braking system, right?
I can't wait, by the way. Whenever I upgrade my brakes, I have a go-to company. I'm just going to have to wait a little bit.
Okay. You want to shout them out first, or do you don't want the cat out of the bag?
I mean, I think at this point, a lot of people run that. It's Paragon.
Yeah.
Paragon brakes.
I mean, I would too, but because I love shiny things. I really love shiny things.
Yeah, their Alcon setup is it's actually pretty nice.
Oh, you're gonna do the Alcon setup. I was gonna do the shiny.
I don't think so. I don't think I need that. I think the 4 pistons would be just as good. But I reached out to them because I was following the 25 hours of Thunderhill, and Nick Amato was running in that series. He runs those brakes on those cars. It's like, hey, man, I would definitely go with this over something like a Willwood kit or I don't know, those other brands that haven't really been tested too well. But I was like, well, if it
I'm
works
testing
for
it.
those, yeah. Um, I figured, if it works for these cars and it's proven in these cars, then it should work for my car.
Yep. I completely agree. And Nick, former guest of the show, he's a good resource for you ninth gen folks. He probably get upset that I send everybody to you, but to him. But if you've talked to him, he has all their data on their ninth gen stuff. That car doesn't exist anymore, but
Right.
he knows all the information about it. He was like the primary project person on that, the lead driver maintainer kind of person, I believe. So he's got a lot of info on that and on the ninth gen. So you got a network. Okay. So I want to go back to the budget thing because I prioritize my brakes and transmission over my suspension. And now I'm trying to dial back my brakes because they're good, but they're better than I can use them, especially with the tire that we use. So that's why I'm dialing back on my brake money and trying to go upgrade my suspension money because we're on these McPherson cars and you need fancy suspension, I believe. As fancy as you can afford. I believe in double adjustables. Jackie's probably yelling at me that triples are fine, but
yeah, I tuned into your most recent with Ryan and Jackie, so yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so I'm dialing back. She's avid that I get something much more fancy than I have. So, but the other thing I've done is the difference of speed, the RPM use, all that stuff. I'm on my 4th final drive, and I think I've finally settled on it. But I put a lot of money in the transmission in the grand scheme of things. Even I sold off the old final drives. That's fine, right? But you want a bulletproof transmission in K-Series cars. It's sort of a weakness in these cars. And especially the 8th and 9th gens, because we have the clutch delay that if you don't delete it, you have to learn to shift with the clutch delay. And then my car already had all the bolt-ons I could handle, and it had all the power that I needed to detune with, right? So I didn't have to worry about power, but it was on the list of, maybe I need to upgrade my header. At one point, I wanted to change my exhaust. I wanted to go to a 4-inch instead of a 3-inch. And then I was told, well, we're never going to be able to take that much power out probably. So, yeah. All this being said, you have to develop the car itself. You have to develop the driver and the car, which is we had this topic. I had it with Dylan, but you make advances to the car. So you finally get your car built, right? So you build it for Club TR, wherever you want to be, right? In your 9th gen. And you get your car for what your data says, you can't get it any faster, right? And then you need to make changes to the car. You make those changes and then you're just back to the driver. Okay, we made these changes. It feels better. Now I need to go faster. And this is the approach that I've taken. Now, I took it a little slow. I require a lot of seat time. We go to 2 tracks, basically, Summit Point and Virginia International Raceway. So when I was collecting data, I wanted it at both tracks. Okay. They're essentially shared home tracks for me. And if the data says the same thing at both places, I'm making the change for sure. And I was making a big swing, right? We made big changes. We went back out, we tested, and we go, okay, I like it. Now I need to drive it. So I drive it hard. I raced Summit, I raced VIR, and now I look at my data again. I'm sort of in that. I'm at my data review phase right now, being a couple days since Hyperfest. So, but you need to get that seat time in. And I don't know. It sounds like you had a lot of 6-speed cars in the past, but I've only had 5-speed cars, and it was a big adjustment for me to get into a 6-speed transmission.
So no, I've actually only had 2 6-speed cars, the TSX and the Civic.
Okay.
Everything else has been 5-speed.
Well, I've never driven a street 6-speed car. My wife has a 6-speed Jeep, but I rarely drive it. And you definitely don't want it on the highway. So there's no reason for me to be in the 6th gear. But there's no like in anger merging on the highway shift to 6th gear. I don't have that muscle memory.
Right.
And so I broke some stuff in my transmission learning that and the clutch delay. So it takes some time. If that's a weakness for you and a weakness in the car, which is both, it was a weakness in the driver not knowing how to drive it properly. It's a weakness in the car with the shift forks bending. Maybe take your time a little. Don't rush the shifts, get used to it, and then sort of pick up your speed there. Another big thing that happened for me is this was a complete seating position change for me, and it took a little bit to get used to. In my EM1, I could see almost the end of my hood, but in my FG2 and my 8th gen Civic, I can see I'm looking over the top of the steering wheel, but the slope of that hood is so crazy, I can't see it from where I am. So it takes time to get used to, especially in a racing environment. I'm going to put some videos out, and you're going to be like, how did you know the nose was there? And it just took a lot of time, I bump into my trailer a lot, to be honest. I bump the front of my open trailer and go, oh, that's where the front is, So,
well, now I got to go and try that. Just go hop in the car and be like, huh.
I mean,
you are like talking about. I'll trust the process.
You're like 2 feet taller than me. I don't think you're going to have that problem.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, it's just different, right? The whole cabin is different for me. This car is so huge that I had maybe 10 minutes in the car street driving. And then when we took it to Piper to get the cage put in, I asked for NASCAR doors because I'm short and round, and I figured I needed the space to get out. There's so much room in this car. I could have gone with the pointy FIA setup. No problem, So it's just very different, something to get used to. So when you're developing the car, you need those test days. Okay. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, test days versus practice days. Okay. Test days are for the car. Practice days are for you. Another one I had with Dylan, I believe. But you have to have a plan. If you want your 9th gen to go faster, you need to schedule track days to run the car, look at data, and make changes. But you need to have an idea of what changes you're going to make and have a plan to do it. Stay organized, write everything down. And for me, this is a new enough car that I write down the tools I need. Like we were testing front sway bars. Okay. I wrote down the tools I needed to take out of my bag or out of my toolkit and place on the side. I laid out the sway bars, and some of them had different collars and bushings. So we had all that stuff laid out, and I was ready to test every one of them. And I had my tools laid out. You jack it up. Luckily, I don't have to fish in my car. I don't have to fish it through a subframe, unlike you 9th gen guys. But
it's the worst. I'm not even going to touch that. I did it on a friend's car. I was like, this. I don't ever want to do this.
Well, but you need to test hooking it, having it hooked up, and then not having it hooked up.
Yeah, that's one thing I haven't done yet. It's been on my things to do, just not recently.
Yes, those are simple. So you need to look into doing stuff like that. For any of your cars, like evaluate how easy those sway bar changes are, evaluate how easy spring changes are. In our cars, rear springs are super easy to do. And front springs, well, I maxed everything out. So I maxed my camber out. I'm still I have a little too much camber according to my tire temps and stuff, but in tire wear, but not that bad. And I get a little faster.
What do you guys run for? Do you guys have camber bolts up front, or do you have everything in the ball joint?
No, we have no ball joints are a big no in my class. So we have everything. We're allowed 2 camber adjusting devices, which is a strength. The double wishbone guys only get 1 camber changing device. So I have 1 crash bolt and I have a top hat, and the top hat is maximized.
Right. So is mine. It's as much as it's going to go. I have probably no more thread left to go on the adjustment screws. So
yeah, I don't. Mine's limited by the actual strut tower.
Gotcha.
So we're slammed up in there. So, but you need to evaluate like how you're going to do it, what it takes, and how long it takes, because maybe you look at the revised schedule for an HPDE day and you wanted to do it between session 1 and 2, but session 1 and 2 are really close. And session 2 to 3, there's like an hour and a half where there was a half hour between 1 and 2. Don't rush. Just get double the data on that and then go do it, or do something small that's fast and quick.
The nice thing about I haven't done a NASA event, like a NASA DE event, in about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So my go-to DE day is like with Jzilla. There they have, it's either a 1 or 2 day event thing, and it's like almost 6 to 8 sessions per day.
Mm-hmm.
So that really allows me to fine tune the car if I need to. Now, like a regular like track night in America type of thing, or I don't know, TT Nats event is not going to give me enough time to go ahead and do that. But luckily, Jzilla has been pretty good enough to me where they have a ton of track time and a ton of downtime for you to do whatever you need to do. So,
yeah, and when you do these changes and you have your data, you still need to take notes on all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
So we take notes on changes and what they do. So
yeah, so I use Track Addict, and it's great for beginners, right? I wish I had something a little bit better, but at the bottom of it, it has like a notes thing for the session that you were running.
Mm-hmm.
I'll write down like cold temps, hot temps, what my camber settings were, all that stuff before the session, after the session, and then I take all that data and try to go over everything and then put it in like a Google document type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll date it, and I can go back to it the next time I go back to that track, or I go to somewhere different, so I can just quickly see what I need to do and make some changes off of that. So it seems to work.
Yeah. It's the most important thing when you're making changes to your car is to write down what the changes were and what they made you feel like they did, and then what the data said. And this includes tire temperatures and pressures. And that's the pressures thing is a big deal when you start sticking with one kind of tire, because you can really, really dial them in, and it helps a lot. It helps really extend the life of those things. So
yeah, and because Club TR is a Falcon spec tire,
mm-hmm.
I haven't run anything else except for maybe like some Continental ECSs or something like that, just as a rain tire type of thing. But I have a lot of time with the 660s, so that's my go-to tire. I would like to try different things, but it doesn't make sense for me to try different things. if
Well,
it's not something that's allowed within the spec series.
here's my pitch for you to ruin your 9th gen Civic. You have the power already. GLTC doesn't do enough local racing for you, in my opinion, or time trials as Club TR is. So you might as well just cage it and ruin your life with Honda Challenge, because
I've heard this somewhere before, probably every day.
Is it from Boston?
It's from Boston. It's from Brian. It's from you. It's from Ash.
Yeah.
It's from everybody.
Yeah. So just seal the deal. So
I would, if once the car is completely paid off, I'll cage it. But until then, I'm happy where I'm at right now.
Okay. Yeah, don't ruin it while you still owe money to somebody on it. So that's the fiscally responsible thing to do. The other big thing that I had to do was really define what the car changes were and what the driver changes were. So I was getting used to the car. So I needed to identify my own personal weaknesses and sort of eliminate them from the data, right? I suck at braking. Let's not worry about braking. I don't actually suck at braking, but I can get better at it. And it's definitely an area. Right. It's like the number one thing I want to work on, right? The data says I'm super good at drilling my lines. I'm super good at being consistent. But what the variable is, this part of it was, having brake issues in the past. It got into my head, so I'm trying to work past all that stuff. But not just what you need to do personally. Like, I'm down 10 pounds. I got 40 more pounds to lose, right? I find the lighter that I am, because I'm just a husky dude, right? Like, the better I feel in the car, the more consistent I feel. So you have to do all that kind of stuff. We talked about that kind of thing in episode 58 or so. Just working on yourself, right? You want to physically work on yourself and then physically work on your driving, so.
Right.
But then you need to be aware of those things
first.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to be very consistent with the basics of your own self as a driver, so you know where you are, and then you can eliminate that from developing the car, because developing the car is a big deal, right? I've spent a lot of time making changes to this car, recording the data, and then moving it forward. But it was for me. Like I said earlier, if you got in my car, you'd be like, man, this thing is terrible. Ash has a completely different spring rate setup and sway bar setup and alignment setup than I do. And he's like, my car's so loose. And I'm like, yeah, not mine. Now, it did get loose at Hyperfest, but we made some tweaks, and it was in the high speed stuff, which is a little scary, but I added.
Well aware on that one, especially up there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I came up to the top of the S's, and I had to cross my hands at the top of the S's and keep my foot in it, and hoping I could straighten it out and slow down enough to hit South Bend, which is also fast. So you need the car settled to get through. So it's a right-hander that I went sideways-ish in multiple times. I'm sure the slip angle was terrible, right? No drifting, right? It's a front-wheel drive car. No, like, drift slip angle. But up there, I'm 120 mile an hour, and the car is not pointed where I want it to point. It's actually that corner. Did you see the CTR from March, the March event, where he went up the S's?
Yeah, he was there.
He looped it there and then crashed. Yeah. That's the same corner. So literally it steps out, and I was like, oh, this is where the CTR lost it. I wonder how he did it, because he wasn't like, so.
I haven't been fortunate enough to go off at that corner yet. So
don't.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, just don't do it.
I don't ever want to go off there. At that section of the track is incredibly scary.
It's excuse me. So another podcast plug is, if you dial your shocks in and you figure out the S's. I'm not giving that secret away. I still got that secret. So if you dial in your shocks, you can eat lots of curbs in our cars. In most cars, if you dial the shocks in really well, you should be able to eat curbing, depending on spring rate. Not this crazy spring rate stuff that Ash is running, but a reasonable spring rate, even an aggressive spring rate. You should be able to do it as long as your spring rate and your shocks are dialed in together. But yeah, it's easy. The S's are easy. I love them. They're my favorite place.
I love them now. Now that I'm aware of how fast I can actually go through that section.
Yeah.
I think so. I was there in March. I think 116 through the S's was my top speed through there.
Okay.
Like, it felt great. I loved it now.
That's not bad. On Falcons?
Yeah.
Not bad. That's actually pretty good. There's some people who don't go that fast in Honda Challenge. So, what else do you want to know? I know you got more questions. There's got to be more questions.
Yeah.
Like
let me pull it up
2 hours more questions.
Yeah. Who would you recommend this chassis and the 9th gen chassis for racing in general? Do you think it's worth the time and investment and all this other stuff to make it worth your while?
Yes. And the car be damned. It's, where are you racing? Who are you racing with? What is the competitiveness of the vehicle? And I've gotten at Summit Point, I've gotten within 0.62 seconds of the pole. Okay. With this car that's not supposed to be very good, especially at small tracks. I for whatever reason, my car is better at a small track than a big track. We're supposed to have the big horsepower and blah, blah, and dominate on the big tracks. And I closed the gap, right? I've been within 1 second at VIR, which with 17 turns and the complexity of VIR, that's kind of a big deal for me. So, it's close. Like I said before, it's close, but it takes work. And in any car, especially the newer ones, when you're I'm not the first person with the 8th gen in the Honda Challenge field. Okay. So I'm not claiming that, Schanfeld, all those guys don't beat me up over this. Okay. But Schanfeld and them don't share. Right. And if they do share, it's probably malarkey. Like, there's a reason I was on 4 different final drives, because people were talking smack about their top end and it wasn't true. Okay. So at least it wasn't true for me, and it cost me 2.5 a lap. So at VIR, just in a final drive change. So you have to be methodical about your car development, no matter what car it is. And that's what I've had to do. Now, if you've noticed the title of this podcast, it's a part 1. Things are getting a little long-winded. We take a shift in what we start talking about. So this is the end of part 1. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for next week.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.